if you come to my country, to Argentina, someone might tell you a story about the LOBISON. LOBISON is a kind of werewolf, but unlike the ones in the Hollywood movies, we are not speaking about a person that turns into a wolf, because we don't have those kinds of animals here in this part of the world. They might turn into another kind of wild beast, perhaps a wild boar or a wild hog, or a big, hairy, scary dog. But mostly some things and some rules that apply to werewolves don't apply to lobisons in this part of the world. Silver bullets do nothing to them. The full moon is not the factor for them to turn into a lobison. And if they bite a person, that person will not turn into a lobison either. They have very strange habits and very strange dietary tastes. But the most important thing that most people in rural areas know about is that if you come from a large family, you have to beware. Because if you're the seventh child of a seventh child, the seventh son of a seventh son, or the seventh son of an uninterrupted line of males, you might become a lobison. Which was not the case of Martinez. Martinez was an only child. He came from a very small family and everyone knew his business. He lived in a very small hamlet. It was such a sleepy place that only every few months they would get the visit of either the priest, the magistrate, or the justice of the peace. And everyone cared about everyone's business, so if a neighbor borrowed something from another neighbor and they did not return it, oh, that was rumor-worthy. And Martinez was quite rumor-worthy for a while because he loved going every Friday evening drinking. So he would drink and drink and drink and drink everywhere and anything, and then he would return every Saturday morning in his cups and sleep all Saturday, having the worst hangover in the area. People would notice that he was grabbing his head and grabbing his belly, all gaunt and sallow and pale and moaning and fetid. But it was Martinez. And it was something that happened every Friday evening. So at one point people stopped paying attention. The only person that paid attention to him was his wife. And when she became pregnant for the first time, she decided that it was much better to baby her belly instead of babying her husband. So she would leave him there resting and moaning and lying down every Saturday. And time passed and rumors started going on, but not of Martinez, but about the chicken coops in the area. Yeah, chicken coops, because people started noticing every Saturday morning that there were very strange footprints around the chicken coops that they had in the hamlet. Hens would be ruffled, roosters would be very angry, and sometimes the eggs had been disturbed. But the real noticeable thing was that the footsteps, or the footprints actually, they stopped next to the chicken manure. And the chicken manure showed signs of having been not only removed, but perhaps eaten. You would find chicken manure and saliva together, and people were like, oh, this is nasty. No beast eats these. So they started looking everywhere, trying to find what strange animal was doing that every Friday evening. But they saw nothing. Until a few Fridays later, at midnight, dogs would start barking and barking and barking and barking all night long until dawn. And they would not stop this cacophony, and this started happening every Friday evening until Saturday morning. And people were very worried because, the dogs would go out and they would run and then they would come crying with their tails between their legs. And, they would see shows of some kind of fight, but at the same time they were so scared and so much barking going on. But it was rumor-worthy and it reached other areas. But that was it. except for one Sunday, when someone went to the cemetery to visit their beloved ones, and they noticed that the graves had been disturbed. The earth had been removed, the coffins were out, opened, and there were signs on the people that had been buried there. Bones broken, flesh ripped, and there were signs of teeth, marks of teeth on that rotting flesh. And then people started watching out. And they started patrolling. And the patrols were not very effective. People would go out with their guns and with their knives and with their barking dogs and lanterns and torches. But they did not notice anything. Some people saw some big beast running around the area, but when they tried to shoot it, bullets would not hit it. And then the newborn babies started disappearing. Newborn unbaptized babies that were found a few days later, dead and eaten. And that's when people started saying LOBISON. Because LOBISONs have very strange habits. They don't eat anything except things that are rotten or things that are not baptized. So they had, done 1 + 1 and they got 2 and they started worrying because you cannot actually shoot a LOBISON. Bullets won't hit it unless the bullets are blessed. And the priest was several months away from coming. And the same with the magistrate and the same with the justice of the peace, even if they let them know that something was going on in the area. And people went out, but they started leaving their knives behind. Because if you cut a LOBISON, the LOBISON might get cured. You might be able to lift the curse from them. And this person will be so grateful to you. And they will try to follow you home and take care of you until eventually they will try to kill you and your family. Because that's the price that you pay for saving someone of the curse. People were patrolling, staying inside their homes almost every evening, waiting, but especially on Friday evenings. So, a few months later, while they were waiting for the priest to arrive, there was Martinez's wife who had given birth to a newborn baby, and there she was inside her house on a Friday evening, while her husband had gone out drinking because he did not care about those rumors of the LOBISON, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? He was celebrating. And she stayed inside. She was staying inside with a crying baby, a very cranky baby. He had thrown up all over her, no clean clothing on hand. The only thing that she could get her hands on was her wedding dress, which was her favorite yellow dress that she had only worn 3 times in her life, but she was risking it because of this angry baby. The baby that could not sleep, that could not stay inside this stifling house because it was so hot inside. And eventually she decided to go to the door and open it. Even if it was a Friday evening, people were patrolling, her dogs were barking at the entrance. Nothing would happen because she knew that people were very much aware of what was going on in the perimeter of the hamlet. So she stayed outside, next to her door, enjoying the breeze, relaxing a little bit, thinking of her plans for Saturday. Perhaps she might be able to sleep a little bit. Perhaps she might be able to leave her baby with her neighbors, so while her husband was sleeping his hangover, she would get a nap. A nap. And while she was thinking this, she did not notice the eyes that were watching her from in between the plants in the darkness. She did not hear the steps that were closer and closer to her and her house. And she did not smell the fetid air that came from that beast that was prowling and approaching her more and more, closer and closer, until it jumped on her. Martinez's wife, you could say that she was saved by a thread. Perhaps more than a thread. Perhaps she was saved by 2 threads and a piece of cloth. Because when the lobison jumped on her, she gave a step back and the lobison got its teeth on her yellow dress. And she was able in the meantime and in the struggle to close the door on the lobison, and she and her baby were saved. She lost her favorite dress because the lobison ripped it. But it was a small price to pay for their 2 lives. And she waited. She waited after this for her husband to come back because she wanted to let him know what had happened while he was away drinking and what he could have lost. But when her baby fell asleep, she fell asleep too, and she did not hear her husband coming back, groaning, moaning, rubbing his head all pale with his fetid air around him, going to sleep. In the morning when she woke up, she went to wake him because she needed to have words with him. And she found him on the bed as usual every Saturday with his hangover, mouth open, breathing deeply while he was sleeping. But she noticed something in his mouth. So she looked a little bit closer and she saw 2 bright things coming out from his mouth. And when she went closer, she noticed that it was 2 yellow threads. And when she looked inside his open mouth, she saw a piece of yellow cloth in between his teeth. And Martinez's wife went to her baby, she picked him up, and she went to her neighbors to let them know what she had seen. And the neighbors locked him up. A few weeks later, authorities arrived and took Martinez with them. He was the lobison. But he was not a 7th son, and he was not, no one could explain it until someone, an elder, remembered one part of a legend that said that you might be crossing paths with a lobison, and if the lobison ran through your legs, you might become a lobison, lifting the curse from the beast to you. So people guessed that perhaps one Friday evening, while Martinez was in his cups, either he crossed paths with the lobison or he fell, legs open, and a lobison ran through, and the lift lifted the curse onto Martinez. So that's how he became the lobison. In 1907, a family of Russian migrants that had a 7th child approached the president of Argentina and asked him to become the child's godfather. And that was because in Tsarist Russia, there was this tradition that the Tsar would bless this 7th child by being his godparent, and the child would have no harm through this blessing. So some people say that tradition, many parents started copying it. And they started approaching the different presidents from 1907 onwards to ask them to become godparents of their 7th children. And in the 1970s, a president in Argentina decided to make this into a law. So nowadays, if you have a 7th child, you can ask the president to become your godfather or godmother. And they might help the child while he is being raised by his parents. But some people say that this is also to protect this child, to protect his health, to protect his life, and his sanity.